So one way to avoid having trouble with the play mode and realizing that you're in play mode is you can actually go here into edit, or actually no, in Unity and preferences, and then there's colors right here, and then here there's one that's called play mode tint. So you can tint the color while in play mode to something like green. And then once you have that, then when you press play, you'll see, watch, the whole thing is now green. So you can never like make that mistake.
Okay.
And yeah, that would be great for for beginners. So you go to Unity, preferences, and then colors, and then just tweak the play mode tint to whatever color you like, but just make it something very noticeable.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you'll definitely know that you're in play mode. It'll make your red, danger, danger. Really try to tweak these physics a little bit. So make it, I really want you to kind of practice this laying out here. So you can almost try to make a whole tower. So one other thing you could do that's also really cool, and I'm going to show you, this is another like Unity basics thing, is you can take all of these objects and make one of them the parent. So I'm going to explain what that means in a second. So a game object doesn't necessarily have to have any kind of properties. It doesn't necessarily have to have a shape or a color or anything. It could just be a point in space. So what you can do is you can go to game object over here, and then you can create empty. So just create an empty game object for me. And you should just see it says called game object, and it has nothing but a transform. So make its transform 0, 0, 0. And you'll see it's not even visible. It's nothing. It's just an empty game object. And then you can take your structure, so all the cubes, not the spheres. You can highlight all of them by like shift clicking like this, just like how you would in a file explorer. Or you could command click the individual objects that you want to highlight. So if you just highlight all the cubes and pull them into that empty game object you just created, like so, you'll notice that they become child objects of this empty game object. So what this allows you to do is now you can move all of these by just moving this parent object all together. Exactly. So it's called, in Unity, it's called like parent and child objects. So there's no real like groups in Unity, but any object that's a child object basically inherits the parent's rotation, position, and scale. So you can even scale this parent game object, and you scale all of these together. You can rotate them all together. You can do all sorts of stuff with them together. So specifically, what this could be useful for right now is I can kind of start just duplicating that parent game object, and now I can start building a structure like this. See that? And now I can have a much more complex simulation here. I can take all those spheres and just move them to the top. See if they roll down.
Could you nest game objects?
Hmm?
Could you nest them? Like have another game object?
Yep, you could keep nesting infinitely. I mean, in theory, but yeah, you could keep like, yep. You can rename game objects by clicking, and over in the inspector where it says game object, you could rename it, to something like parent or whatever. Or you could just rename it here in the hierarchy just by kind of like doing that like light click thing where you kind of like click and then you kind of wait a second and then it gives you that. So just kind of practice that a little bit. Here they come. Ah, there we go. Oh, it's stuck. One of them still going. Still going. There it goes. Made it to the bottom. This grass is a little too shiny for my liking, so I'm just gonna click and I'm gonna just turn off its smoothness just completely. It's probably the best for grass. Okay, save your scene. So another thing that's also pretty cool in Unity is we can actually change the sky and stuff, and I think this would be a good time to introduce you to another major feature in Unity, which is the asset store. We kind of covered it a little bit in our free meetup before, but I can kind of show you a little bit of a different use case for it. So to get to the asset store, you just click right next to the scene tab here now. It's just asset store. And what I want you to do is I want you to scale it, make it a little bit bigger. Sometimes it's on a Mac screen, it's a little hard because they could be a little small sometimes if you're on the smaller ones. So what you can also always do is you could just pull this whole tab out and just detach it. And then you can make it as big as you want. So just make it big enough to have this side navigation here. So plug that a little bit. Just press home again. So you'll see that it kind of has lots of stuff here. There's 3D models, animations, audio. There's even complete projects that you download and the whole game is built and coded and everything, and you can just tweak some things. There's free stuff, there's paid stuff. Specifically, what we want to look for right now is a skybox. So a skybox is basically going to be the sky. It's called a box because back in the day, you actually, to make a sky, it was actually a cube outside, and the sky was just like, the textures were made in a way that they were seamless in the cube, and it looked like it was like a sphere around you, but it was actually a cube, but you couldn't tell it was a cube. So they call it a skybox because way back in the day, like a sphere was just too much geometry for something like the sky. So a cube was the only really thing you could use. So if you just look up skybox here in the search, and then you can click right here where it says free only to make sure we're only seeing the free ones. And you'll see a few cool ones here. I'm going to go with this fantasy skybox, but they got some cool ones like these space skybox and stuff, but let's just go with this fantasy skybox here for now. So I already have it downloaded, so for me it's just an import, but for you it might just say download here. So just download it, and Unity will kind of do its thing, and you should get an import dialog like this. So what this is basically all of the stuff that the Skybox comes with, or this asset specifically. Now, every artist has their own way of packaging these up and stuff. Um, so this Skybox comes with a lot of crap here that it shouldn't. It comes with like touch joysticks, comes with footstep sounds. It comes with a lot of the Unity standard asset stuff, which is kind of a little bit annoying at this point. I don't know why they would make this so bad like this. Uh, but I guess this is a good time to kind of just show you how to just uncheck these things. So if you just make all these small like this, you can just uncheck this GE common assets. You can uncheck this GUI animator. You don't need that. The only thing we really need is this Fantasy Skybox free folder. Inside the Fantasy Skybox free, you might even be able to uncheck the demo folder. You don't really need it. Presets is fine. Yeah, something like that. So, but usually you should just import everything if you just want to make sure the asset works properly. I just know this asset, and it seems like this developer just forgot to like clean up his folder before uploading it or something. So something like this, and then you can click import. Unity will do its thing, and you should see your new assets in your project view. So it should be called Fantasy Skybox free folder right there. So if you go in there, you should see a bunch of things like materials, textures, and stuff. So the materials are where the skies actually are here. And you can just kind of preview them like so. Now you can see that this is exactly what I was talking about. It's a sky box. See, there's 6 sides, and they make up a sky, which is basically a cube. It's a 6-sided cube. So to actually apply the skybox to our scene, we go here in Unity, we go to Window, and then in there's a one called Lighting, and then Settings. So you go into the Lighting Settings, so it's Window, and then Lighting, Settings. And then you should see here, it should say Skybox Material, Default Skybox. You want to click that like little circle right next to where it says Default Skybox. And we're going to select one of these skyboxes. You can go with Night, Sunny, whichever one you want. I'm going to go with Sunny. And now you should see your scene has that applied. Now you can't really tell it's a cube, right? But it is. I can kind of tell, but it's made for you to not be able to tell. Like the textures are skewed in a certain way. So that's another cool feature. So yeah, Asset Store is a pretty cool source. I guess another cool thing to show would be just importing some 3D models from the Asset Store. So I'm gonna open up my Asset Store again. If you pull the window apart and you can't get to it anymore, you can always just click Window, and Asset Store should be in there. In Unity, Window, Asset Store. So now I want to look for some barrels. So I'm going to look up something like barrel. And I'm going to do the same thing, free only. So I got some cool ones. I got some wood barrels here. Simple wooden barrel. Should be fine. This also looks pretty cool. AAA quality PBR barrel. PBR means physically based renderer. So it means it comes with everything. It comes with the normal map, the bump map, speculars and stuff. So I'm just gonna go with this cartoony one. So I'm gonna download it. There it is. So for this one, just I'm gonna import everything. Looks pretty clean. Click import. And back into my Unity, there should be a folder in there now called Simple Wooden Barrel Pack. And now this is important. So with Unity assets, usually there is like a folder called prefabs, which is short for prefabricated objects. So prefabs, you have models, which is the model of the barrel, but that might not be what you're looking for. Prefabs is basically the barrels already set up with the material and everything just ready to drag and drop into the scene. So prefabs is just a common word. It's used all throughout the Unity development, you know, workflow. People create prefabs. The prefabs folder is usually where like the final draggable asset stuff exists. And you can take some barrels and just drag them into your scene. They already have rigid bodies on them, meaning they will have physics. They even have stacks of barrels ready for you. This is great. I feel like I've done classes where we've stacked barrels before, but I kind of make it easy for you here. I'm going to take some of these barrels and put them at the bottom of my simulation. And hopefully the spheres will get to them and knock them over. Now, the one important thing about the spheres is I want to increase their mass. Make sure they can actually push these barrels over. So not only can you just edit one sphere at a time, you can actually select all the spheres, and if they have the same component, which they do, they all have a rigid body, you can actually change the mass on all three of them at the same time. So by selecting all three of them, you can then go into the rigid body here and make the mass something like 10. That's definitely going to make them heavy enough to push those barrels over.
It doesn't change their dimensions.
Nope.
It's just
the mass, yeah. I'm going to press play. Some of my spheres aren't going to make it. I know one usually does, though. Here it comes. Here it comes. It's going. And what a bummer. Okay, I'll move them a little bit. I'm also gonna get rid of one of these like tower heads. It's too much, man. Too big. Okay. Let's see. You might have imported some that junk stuff. Okay. So when it says that, usually means there's a script error somewhere. Now, yeah. So they had the demo folder there. You see, it usually tells you which one it is. So if you just click the error like that, it will actually pull up the script where it has the problem, and it's usually right here. So you can actually go ahead and just delete this whole demo folder. The reason why it's giving the error is probably some of those other folders that you can do the right click. So you can actually just right click and delete. So yeah, now you press play. So it won't let you play if you have a script error. And the reason why there was a script error is most likely it was like depending on some of the other stuff that was in that package that we already disabled. But you'll see when we cover a little bit of scripting tomorrow, you're going to see how some of that stuff works. Let's play on this. Here it comes. And knocked them over barely. Probably needs a little more max. Yeah, that's okay though. It's not a big deal. So I'm just gonna go ahead and save this scene, and I think we can get started setting up ARKit. We got pretty comfortable with the basics now, right?
Yeah.
See that it's, as long as you're just comfortable with navigating around, I think that's the trickiest part. Yeah, that's the trickiest part. But that takes practice. That's the most important thing. Practice makes perfect with the navigation stuff. I've been doing this for years now, and it's just like second nature to me. But you'll see, like, after a few weeks of just kind of moving
it's
around.
the same. I watch like my niece and nephew play Minecraft,
Yeah.
and they know how to maneuver so quickly through things.
Yep. Yep.
So I noticed that when we applied the skybox, everything had a blue tint.
Yep.
And
So
is that because of the skybox?
Yeah.
It reflects it.
Yep. So Unity, that's a more recent Unity feature that the skybox actually does that. You can actually, if you go into the window lighting settings, you can tweak the amount of environment lighting that it's giving. And if you don't want it to tint it that way, you can actually make the environment lighting come from a color and not from the skybox. You can make it come from a color, like something that you set,
So I'm having a little bit of difficulty navigating down.
So
What's the? I mean, I'm doing.
there's a
left and right.
shortcut Q and E
Q and E. Okay.
while you're holding. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's easy.
I usually just look down and then go in it. But yeah, there's Q and E for that. So yeah, it's pretty much everything is there. Q, E, W, A, S, D.
Okay. I have more control now.
Yeah, if you need to like sync in and stuff, that's how you do it. All right, so now what we're gonna go ahead and do is we can actually either make it. Yeah, we should just go ahead and make a new project. So I'm gonna do File, New Project, and this one we're gonna call. Now I just want to make sure which versions of Unity are you running. You can
0x3 7.
Yep. And you? Okay, perfect. So, new project. So you do a file, new project, and let's call this one Learn AR Weekend Day 1, and then ARKit. And create project. Now, this is going to be important for being able to export. Do you both have Xcode installed? The latest versions? If you don't, you can go to the App Store. Also, just make sure your Xcode is updated. If there's an update for it, update it. If not, then you're good. Just go to the App Store and just look for Xcode. And it should be right here. I can't believe it's like a 3 stars. Like what? I mean, it's not like that great, but okay. I mean, yeah. So just install it or update it, and you can let that just kind of run in the background while we set this up. The other thing you should all have is Apple developer account, which you don't really need to pay for it, but you do need to set it up. So just, go to developer.apple whatever and just, Apple developer. Just developer.apple.com, or you can just Google it, Apple developer, and then go to account, and you should probably log in with your Mac ID, with your Apple ID, or whatever. And once you kind of log in with it, then I think it should tell you something like, do you want to sign up, accept these terms, all that stuff. So you should just kind of go ahead and do that. Um, and again, like if you have any trouble with that, let me know. Like that's what we're here for today, to make sure everyone's set up with all this stuff and get you to export everything working. Usually, like that's one of the tricky things is just making sure everything exports properly, and the certificates are correct on your phone, and there's a bunch of like different little things that, like, unless you kind of know this stuff, it could be kind of like a headache.
Right.
But that's why we're here to just make, I know all this stuff, so I'm gonna make sure you know it all too by the end of this. So are you signing up for one as well?
No, I'm
You already have it? Okay, good. We'll just wait a couple of minutes. Xcode? All right. So you should be all set for now, and then later, if there's something else, we'll figure it out. So here's how you get started with ARKit, right? So you have your Unity open. Again, we're back to the default layout, just empty. Everything's empty. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to set it up for iOS. So it is really easy. All you have to do is go to File, Build Settings, and then here you should see all the list of different development platforms. So we want to click iOS and switch platform right here. It's important to switch the platform first before importing anything, because if you import something in your project and then you switch platform later, it kind of has to re-import everything again. It's just quicker to just set it to the platform you want first and then import everything after. So now you should see up here, instead of saying PC, Mac, and Linux or whatever, it says iPhone, iPod Touch, and iPad at the top of your window. You can see the top of the TV from here. It's kind of glaring from the light, but can you two see it from there? Okay, good. Just making sure. So now that we have that, we're gonna go back to our good old asset store. So if you pull the asset store out, you can always just click Window, Asset Store, and it will just come right back. And in the asset store, in the search, we're gonna just type in ARKit. And the one that you want is this middle one. Oh, look at this. They got ARKit wall mapper now. Wow. That's pretty cool. Someone wrote like a script that actually can detect the walls as well. The AR kit is mostly for flat surfaces. So that is cool. I might actually take a look at that later. But yeah, so the one that we want is Unity AR Kit plugin. It's this one right here. And it has the skewed texture. I'm going to click that and download it or import it. It'll say importing a complete project. So what that means is if you had anything in your project already, some texture, some whatever, it'll basically delete all of that and just start over from the beginning as a whole project. So this is, if you want to make an AR kit project, the important thing to do first is to import the AR kit plugin and then start putting in all your other stuff. Yeah. So just say import here, you're all good with this, and then just let us do its thing. It's gonna give you that same package list as before. We want all of it. Just click import. I'm gonna pull out my iPad, just to kind of show you a little build preview.
So if you want to start, we do this import to start for this class, but let's say I want to do a second project. Do I take the same steps? I go into
You should pick a new project,
make a new project, go to the asset store, grab.
AR kit.
Oh, it could be updated, right? It might get a change or an update.
Maybe, yeah. Oh, you mean like, well, you could always just have your, previous folder. Like you could literally clone the folder that you had
And then
before.
continue building off of that same
Yeah.
that import from before. If I wanted to like.
Yeah, you don't need to always get it from the asset store. You could, if you already have it installed, in a folder in your documents somewhere, you
Right.
can just clone that folder and then work from there.
Start working off of that.
Yeah, I typically do that, and I know pros do that. Like if you have some, major change that you want to make, but you want to keep your project the way it is, you just literally duplicate it.
It's like branching.
Yeah, then you open it. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But brand new, you always gotta go into the asset store. Go
Yep.
down.
That's where it lives. It used to, when they just released it, it used to be on the Apple website. You downloaded the zip file and then you imported it yourself. But ever since then, they've integrated it directly with Unity. So Unity is supporting this directly. Yeah. So it's, you can see that Unity Technologies is the developer.
If you have an existing project and you've done stuff to it, and then they release like a new feature to AR Kit that you want to implement, is there a path to that?
It's a little tricky. You should probably, again, like start a new project, import, and then pull your stuff.
The assets in that you
It
need.
should just work. If you just merge them, it should just work.
Oh,
It should be no problem. Yeah, Unity's pretty good with that kind of stuff. Unity also has automatic updates for if something, for example, I've known some scripts that wrote like 2-3 years ago, and just some of the language has changed, some of the features have changed. They have an automatic script upgrader that changes. Changes the stuff that you did, and it makes it work for the new stuff. Very very rarely it doesn't work properly, especially only if you're doing very specific hardware hooks and stuff. But yeah, mine's still importing, and yours should probably be a little bit too. Mine's probably going to import a little bit slower because I'm screen recording. My CPU is being hogged. That's okay. And then later on, after the classes and stuff, I'll upload these videos to YouTube. I'll make them unlisted, and then you'll just have the links. So, you'll be the only ones that have the links to this. I'm actually gonna pause the screen recording. Not pause it. I'm gonna stop it and start it back up again to speed up this import.